Welcome to the Sexual Wellness Podcast, real-life conversations with industry experts on modern sexuality and how to live a happy, healthy, turned-on life. I'm your host, Laura Allen, founder of New Zealand's leading sexual wellness store and holistic sex, love, and life coach, passionately guiding women to expand their pleasure in and outside the bedroom. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Sexual Wellness Podcast. Today I am speaking with Brenden Durell, who is a former professional athlete offering a powerful perspective on cultural masculinity versus sacred masculinity, and now helps support both men and women around the world to identify and reach their highest potential and purpose. He also works alongside some serious movers and shakers like Conscious Man Brotherhood, Sacred Sons, Preston Smiles, and Prince EA, serving daily and in deep-rooted love. In this episode, we unpack the myth of Stoicism, breaking down the mask of masculinity, and how to get involved in men's work. We also cover various other topics like sexuality, polarity, safety, holding space, non-ejaculation, and much, much more. And just another reminder that my books are open for coaching, and I'm super excited about it because I absolutely love supporting women into living their best freaking lives and having a fun and pleasurable time while doing it. So if you want to radically change the way that you feel about your body, your sex life, and your life, then I've absolutely got you covered. And you can contact me via the website on www.laura-allen.com and submit an inquiry. Let's enjoy the show. Welcome, Brenden. It is such an honor to have you here. I'm always on the hunt for amazing men working in this space because I'm constantly being asked, where can I go from my male listeners and from my male audience, where can I go? What can I do? And so, yeah, it's just such an honor to have you on the show. And I'm really, really excited about this conversation.
Yes. Thank you for having me, Laura. I deeply appreciate it. And I just dig your vibe. I dig what you're doing. I feel the power in your podcast and also just what you share. It's real and raw. And that's what appeals to me the most in my life. So thank you for having
me. My pleasure. Okay. So before we dive in, my first question for you is, what color are you today and why?
What color am I today?
Yep.
Today I am silver. And I feel silver because it's like when you see silver in the sunlight and you see that angle, it kind of has this little shimmer. I feel that deeply in my body today. And I can't explain why, but I feel like a beautiful aspect of silver. Yeah.
Sparkly.
But strong and solid.
Delicious. Okay. Awesome. So, I'd love to know a little bit more about your story of self-discovery and what led you to do the work that you do today, because cacao, breathwork experiences, as well as life coaching, particularly for men, is quite a mix. So I'm intrigued to hear about your spiral of living this, hashtag woke life. I hate using the word conscious. It's just so not cool. Yeah. I'm totally going to go out on a limb and assume that it was not a linear experience. So do tell.
Yeah. So in this version of life, I incarnated in New Jersey. In the States, and I lived between there and New York, back and forth. And I've always been a kid of wonder, childlike wonder, and always connected to my mystic, sort of say. So that was always within me. I was the kid in my neighborhood where when kids were playing sports, I was trying to make papyrus out of old Christmas cards and things like that, melting them and blending them and then pouring them out and then trying to write on the shit. That was like me as a kid. So I was doing stuff like that. So I had this thing in me that was very eclectic. But I buried it, and I played sports for 24 years of my life. I played basketball.
Right, because that's what men do.
That's what men do. That's what men do. Absolutely. And I was good at it, and I received praise from it, from family, from friends, from my community. So the whole art aspect in me, the mystic in me, I put it to the side and just started essentially hitting home runs in baseball and receiving praise that way. So baseball has been an amazing tool for me and vehicle. I received scholarship in America to play university. And then after that, I played professional baseball in the States and internationally for 5 years. And that was my vehicle to traveling around the world. And how I sum up my journey is that the sport of baseball led me to going to these amazing, beautiful, high vibrational lands that essentially cracked me open and brought me to me. And the first one being was Hawaii, the beautiful island of Maui, which is considered one of the heart chakras on Gaia, on this beautiful feminine land. And it cracked me wide open. And from that point on, like, I just had the feeling that I had as a kid when I was making the papyrus and those things. I felt that again as an adult, but this time as a 6'2", 108 kilo man. And I'm like, oh, what do I do with this? Like, I can't make money with this. Like, I can't go out in the world and say, like, I want to help people, quote unquote.
Right.
So
what did this cracking open look like? Sorry to interrupt, but this whole cracking open expression, yeah, what did that look like exactly?
It was like a ginormous, like, bells ringing. It was something that I remember just in a snippet of it. I was sitting on top of this dormant volcano called Haleakala. And Haleakala is the volcano on Maui. And I remember being up there for sunset, looking out at the ocean, like really high up. It's so silent, but yet so loud at the same time. And I remember being so engulfed by all of that. Like, it was so loud, but it was quiet. And then I remember that contrast just lit something inside of me, deeply. And I couldn't pinpoint it, but I just remember just being just ripped open, like my heart, and like, wait, what's happening to me? I feel like a child again.
Mm-hmm. And then what happened after that?
That led, like, vibrationally, I was always a leader on my teams. I played catcher in baseball, so that's pretty much on-field leader, which in cricket for the Australian and New Zealanders, it's almost like the wicket keeper. That's what I played in baseball, the equivalent to that. I was like the field general. I was always looking out and seeing things happening. But this was like something different. People started coming to me on my teams and from different places asking for advice. And I just realized this kept happening to me after this experience.
Right. Okay. So then you sort of really like grasped this whole leadership thing. And then what led you into going into life coaching and cacao? Because that's a very spiritual journey, and even breath work and so on. Like, did you sort of start to explore these alternative methods of, lifestyle and healing and health and everything?
Yeah, I say, like, with coaching and supporting, this was something that, like, I resisted for the longest. Like, say, like, the same hang up you have about the term conscious, I had the same term about coaching. That's something I had to work through because but essentially, tomato, it doesn't matter. Like, it's all the fucking same, and we get to support people. So that's where I was at. But once I surrendered to that, I realized, like, I was still trying to work 9-to-5 jobs. Even after I played baseball, and like the professional baseball life itself, you're on the road a lot. You're working an unconventional schedule. So essentially I was setting myself up for an entrepreneurial style lifestyle just by playing baseball. So when I would try to go back and get jobs, in the off season, it was so hard to integrate and to adapt back into that reality. But I kept going against my intuition and kept getting this job, that job. And I'm a teacher by trade. I taught high school physical education and health. So that's like my trade. And I just couldn't do it. Like, it's just something about it. So I was like, I have to realize and learn a way to support people and also feed myself.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, I've spoken to many people in the industry who know you, and you've definitely, you definitely come with a lot of street cred. So yeah, and you really exude those leadership qualities. It's such a vibration, isn't it? Yeah.
And speaking into cacao really quick, that's something that I've started working with the plant about 2 weeks ago, like the beautiful Theobroma tree. And that was just something I did for myself. I had the beautiful opportunity to fly to Guatemala, and I sat on a porch with this man named Keith Wilson. And Keith is like you can say he's almost like the grandfather of who brought cacao back to our Western culture. So anybody who's doing a cacao ceremony present day in the Western world is essentially from this man, Keith, because about 20 years ago, he got the call from the spirit to bring this medicine, this heart medicine, out to the world. And when I went down to Guatemala, I didn't even know about this man. I just went down there. And then somebody said, hey, you should go sit on Keith's porch and have some cacao. And I was like, hot chocolate, man's porch? All right, I'll check it out. Didn't put nothing into it. But I went, and it like shifted my whole life. Just the chocolate, and then also just being in the presence of that medicine and a steward of that medicine. So cacao is something that it just fills my cup. These cacao experiences that I lead and support with, they're just something that just deeply I just love, especially coming from the men's space, having a tool that can really touch men's heart in a way and lead without me having to lead. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I like how you say that, especially for the men's space, because it is such a heart experience, cacao, and it's a very meditative experience as well. So it's so beautiful to offer that as a type of medicine for, quote unquote, men who probably aren't really used to experiencing that sort of stuff.
I work with, I'm a facilitator for the Sacred Sons, and Conscious Man Brotherhood. And these two, groups, say Sacred Sons, say social media wise, 70% of their followers are women. And for men's work, 70% of their followers are women. And same thing for Conscious Man Brotherhood. And I was speaking to Keith from Keith's Cacao. He said 70% of the women, the people who buy cacao from are women. So we're like looking at this through line of like, So I'm really passionate about bringing this kind of heart medicine to the men's space, because this is something that's instantly will alleviate a lot of the emotional shaming that men we've gone through, say through these through this patriarchy in a lot of ways of like how we should act as a man. And so to allow and invite this beautiful soft essence of a spirit, it invokes so much within us. And to me, like that's the true warrior. It's being in the heart and living from the heart. And I like to call it righteous passion. And men get to be in that space and take up their space from that space. And cacao is a beautiful segue.
Amen. I'm so all about everything you just said. We're going to dive into that a bit more, but I love how you talk about cultural masculinity versus sacred masculinity. Can you elaborate a little bit more on these concepts and the difference between them?
Yes. Cultural masculinity, big boys don't cry. Excuse my language. Stop being a bitch. Don't be a pussy. Don't show emotion. Fuck her. Fuck him. Lone wolf. That's been essentially cultural masculinity. Don't show weakness. Sacred
for a long time.
For such a long time. You're right. Such a long time. As little boys, we've been taught that. Oh, my daddy says boys aren't supposed to cry. Oh, why? And it's like, why? Sacred masculinity is, for me, expressing the full spectrum of emotions and not at a compromise to who I am in my masculine stance. and it's being fully embodied. Because in my truth, it's, let's say for you, you embody both sacred masculine and divine feminine. I as well, even though innately you're sitting in this life in the feminine, you still have sacred masculine in you. Innately, I'm sitting in masculine, I still have feminine in me. And it's not either or, it's not black or white, it's both. Like we have both, and that's the nature of it. And men, we've been told that we only have one side of it based on our culture.
Yeah, totally. So we talk a lot about this on the show, you know, the masculine and the feminine, and it's like, so we have a little bit of both in them. But then I also like to mention that, you know, whether you're in a male body or a female body, you will identify more with one of those energies. So it's like, just for example, I'm in a female body and I resonate so strongly with the feminine energy, not just because I want to be a feminine woman and I want to wear dresses and have long flowy hair. It's because when I am in that feminine essence, I feel deeply, deeply fulfilled. And it's and that's how you can tell, because there are plenty of females plenty of women in female bodies who are the opposite. And so it's just a little bit of a journey to sort of like experiment and discover which one of those energies really lands and makes you feel fulfilled, and so on and so forth. I just wanted to add that in there.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you were just talking about this sacred masculinity and being able to embody your divine feminine and acknowledge that and integrate that into your life, but still stand strong within your masculinity, your masculine essence. Can you kind of unpack that for me? What does that look like? So say we've got some listeners on the show who are just like, what? I've never heard of any of this stuff before. What does that actually look like? Layman's terms.
For me, it's a daily reminder, and I do my best to always remind myself that I still came from a woman in this life. I wasn't born through a man. I wasn't born through a penis. I was born through a yoni. And so there's a responsibility that I have to keep in touch with that essence of what I came from. And for me, in the work that I do with my, say, creativity and how I express myself, it's from a feminine stance. My conviction is from my masculine stance. And that's how I remind myself personally. And so how it can look for people who, let's say they really can't distinguish what it might look like. I always invite, putting hats on, and until like everything becomes just one. Same way like Jung talks about in the Archetypes book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. It's a framework. And it's like, okay, I'm going to channel my warrior energy now. I'm going to channel my king energy, my lover, all these things. So same thing with masculine and feminine. Like I play a game personally with myself of like, oh, I'm going to be in the creative flow now. So I'm tapping into my femininity, and I have a structure. I'm creating this structure, this logistical plan. I'm tapping into my masculine. So I play this game with myself where I try to identify with my human mind, different types of energies.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. I'd love to unpack this word, stoicism. And I feel like because it's so widely misunderstood, especially for men, you just tapped into it before with cultural masculinity. So how can we kind of rebrand this word stoicism? And I love this quote. It's better to be soft and strong than hard and weak. And I see it all the time. You know, these big, you know, physically strong men who are quite abrasive and not even necessarily physically aggressive, but something in that they really, they want to come across like they're so quote unquote strong. Yet I feel like I could break them open with my gaze, you know, you get that so see-through in a way. So what is it about being soft and strong, and how can we completely rebrand stoicism for, you know, optimal mental health for masculinity?
For me, softness directly correlates with surrender and safety. And in my opinion, most men who let's say they put up that hard facade of, I have to be this way, it's because they don't feel safe. However that looks for them, whether it be childhood or something happened to them, mid-adult life, who knows? But this soft nature that we speak about, even softness has a negative connotation with it when it comes to our culture. It's like, oh, he's soft. Like, oh, she's soft. She cries a lot. So there's like this thing of like, oh, it's not good to be soft. And for me, with Stoicism, it's to be truly stoic. It's like a warrior feels like so much. They feel the energy of the person in front of him, the brothers next to them, and just the land around them. For instance, you're in New Zealand right now, and it's the land of the haka. And when we see the haka itself, it's just so emotional because those warriors, they're super masculine, huge men, but they're actually embodying a spectrum of emotions through them. And to me, that's what the true essence of Stoicism is. It's, I love you, but I'm willing to go there to take you out. And that's the fire that I live from. And with Stoicism, in our culture, 100%, I feel that it's, we've been giving examples of like Thor and these Marvel characters, and we have to be this way to be a hero, to be embodied. And that's not the truth. Some of the strongest men I've ever been around in my life have been men who will cry on the spot, will let it out and release. And then and then what makes them even stronger? Boom. They shift right past it. Just that easy. And I'm like, oh, this dude is powerful. He not only controls like how big his biceps are in his chest, but he controls his inner muscles too. I'm like, holy shit. This is a stoic man.
Yeah. That is some sexy emotional intelligence right there. Yeah. It's so how can men start to feel that level of safety to go there? Because again, you know, if you have grown up in an environment where these types of conversations are just not normal and you're not hanging out with people who support this type of lifestyle or even mindset, how can we start to create a sense of safety to go there?
Are you speaking from sisters holding brothers or just in general?
Not yet. I feel like we'll get to that later. I think maybe just to clarify more, like, okay, say I'm a listener and I'm a man and I'm like, okay, this all sounds great. How? You know, my whole life has been like this and I've got no idea where to start, who to turn to. What does safety mean and how can I start to create that around me?
For me, it's first thing is awareness. Like once we have awareness in the story we've been telling ourselves and the story we're keeping ourselves in, that's when the first phase one happens, where it's like, okay, I don't feel safe. Maybe because of this, maybe because of that. In a lot of the trauma work that I support people in, and that I've been a part of, they say, oh, identify the time when you were a child or this thing that happened. And it's never that one thing. To me, it's an accumulation of a bunch of things that why people don't feel safe, and especially men. It could be just that one time, let's say a man's in a locker room and his towel falls off and a teammate goes, oh, he has a little dick. Like just that little, and then guys laugh about it. That little thing right there, that registers in his body as a deep trauma, as a deep thing. So all of this is like, it all plays a part. It all plays a part.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you also have said something that I really, really resonated with, and it's actually on your social media. You said, in simplicity, men who show up level up. Just being in a space, being seen by men who care is medicine. So I thought we could unpack that because I feel like this is also going to lead into the, you know, how can we make ourselves feel safer to drop in? So I guess the first part that I wanted to understand better is men who show up level up. So what does showing up mean?
Showing up is putting yourself out there. It's opening up the door and not just looking out, but just stepping through the door and just come like, I'm here. I don't know what to expect. I'm kind of nervous, kind of on edge. I don't trust you. I don't trust you, but I'm here. I showed up. Now what?
Yeah. Yeah. Open heart, open mind.
Yeah. And even
doing the work.
And my thing with a lot of men in the space too, it's like most men don't come in with an open heart. Most men come in with an open mind, and then their heart's like, poof, it comes open. And all we need in this space is just men to even have a little smidget of curiosity. And then once the heart detects that there's curiosity, then like the heart burrows through that hole and expands everything about their reality.
Yeah. So just being in a space, being seen by men who care, which is the next part of your quote there. I'm guessing you're talking about, men's circles, workshops for men specifically.
Yeah.
Did you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Aligning with men who are in a space to really see you and to stay neutral and no judgment at all. And say like me being a former professional athlete, I've been in many locker rooms where there's never been support. And there's been times when it's like, I have a really good game. Guys love me. And I have like a really shitty game and guys are like standoffish. So it's like this conditional aspect of relating that, most men get from an early age, even with our parents younger. It's like, oh, you get an F on a test. My mom or dad's going to be mad at me. You get an A, they're going to be happy. So even at an early age, our love that we received was conditional. And that's even more so with men. It's like, oh, this dude's cool. He's cool until he does this, and then he's not cool anymore. So there's this tug of war with love and unconditional love. And in these spaces with men, it's you just come as is, and everything's just being reflected back to you. We're just asking you questions, and you're figuring stuff out yourself. There's nothing that we're going to do to you or tell you. It's just that we're here to listen, and we get it. Most of the men who share things when, let's say, I'm a lead coach in this program called Man Cave that was founded by Preston Smiles. And let's say in this program, when we have the men share, literally 90% of the men all have experienced the same thing, but we never speak about it ever. We never speak about it, whether it be pornography, masturbation, being molested, being raped as a man. Like these things has happened to a lot of men. And it's so mind boggling that most men have experienced a lot of this in some of these spaces. And it's like, oh, this brother experienced that. I did too, but I haven't told anybody because I haven't felt safe to, because I thought I was the only one.
I thought I had to keep it all inside because that's what being a man is. Exactly.
So
powerful that these spaces are out there for men to finally kind of open up and evolve and work through this stuff and in a safe, quote unquote, safe space. I know for me personally, like what I need to feel safe in an environment like that, or what I need to feel safe in my life is, well, it's very multifaceted, but it even comes down to intentionally choosing the environment that I live in, choosing an environment that supports me. So, for example, I live by the beach because I know that going to the water every morning helps me ground so that I can go out into the day from a neutral space, and that makes me feel safe. It's about intentionally choosing the people who I spend time with. So if they're people who love me conditionally and don't support me when I'm crying, don't support me when I make horrific mistakes, don't support me in my widest range of emotional expressions, then I can still love them. It's not like I need to go and delete them as a Facebook friend.
Yes.
I can still absolutely love them and be there for them, but I can also intentionally choose to set boundaries and invite new people into my life that are who are going to support me, hold space for me, quote unquote, hold space, which means listening without judgment, just sitting there and listening, not needing to fix. You know, it's like, I don't need you to solve my problems for me. I just need to be heard. I need to cry. I need you to look at me crying. I need you to feel empathy for me, but I don't need you to be swayed by what's going on for me. I don't need you to lose yourself in my emotions. I just need you to be there. Actually, there's a really great man. I kind of like that within all of my relationships, friendships, family, and romantic relationships as well. But if we're going to go back to kind of, I guess, masculine, feminine polarity, speaking particularly to romantic relationships, there's a quote that I love to share. And it's, a wise man once said, nothing. He let her vent and then they had sex. And I just love that because it's like so true. I mean, like, if we're going to just talk about polarity a little bit now, I'm like, you know, I'm so deep in my feminine all the time, constantly changing. I am just this like river oceanic flow of like, da la 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 la. Sometimes I am wildly expressed in all sorts of crazy emotions. And then to have a man who can feel that depth, you know, and who can meet me in that depth of my emotion, but also not get lost in my ocean. Do you know what I mean? Who can be this kind of lighthouse for me. So I can be completely wild, bashing up against the rocks, just like losing it, you know, in a, I guess, not a completely crazy way, but really like in an emotional way. But then, yeah, just that there-ness, I can see you, I hear you, I feel you, I've got you, I'm here, but I'm not going to like fall apart and come into this ocean with you.
Yes. I love that. I love that quote as well. And that's the nature of it. That to me, that's what, and it's a tough concept. It's counterintuitive for men who's been programmed by this society that's our responsibility, just to hold and to bear witness. Like we're taught to fix it, Mr. Fix It. Like, and if I can't fix it, well, turn it around, like fuck it kind of thing. This has been the nature of it. And a friend shared with me one time, this beautiful imagery of masculine and feminine. And it's one of my favorite metaphors. It's, the feminine is this raging, pumping waterfall coming down. The masculine is the pool that catches the waterfall coming down. The pool, the masculine, is not responsible for how the flow comes down, but the energy is responsible for holding space in that pool as the waterfall drips into it. And then after it drips into it, it goes down the rest of the river. And this was shared to me, I was like, okay. You always see a pool of water with a waterfall, and they're both separate, but they're the same, and they're complementing each other. So that changed my whole life. It's like, I'm not responsible for the flow and how it rages or how it's not raging. I'm just responsible for holding serve and allowing it to come down and allowing it to pass.
Beautiful. Which is relevant in, you know, relationship, whether you are in like a heteronormative relationship or a same-sex relationship, there will always be that polarity, but it's also relevant within ourselves as well. And, you know, I'm sure you can speak to this, but as a man, you've got the waterfall and you've got the pool underneath it. And we need to be able to work with both of them to create that inner alchemy, that harmony, you know?
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, paying attention to that. I like that. I'm going to use that. So what about healthy sexuality for men? There are so many different avenues when it comes to learning about sexuality. And I feel like for men it can get very confusing. So I'd love to know from you what healthy sexuality means to you as a man.
For me as a man, sexuality itself was taught to me based on culture. I, like many people that I know, never had a talk with my parents about what healthy sexuality is, because also, too, they might not have known what healthy sexuality was. So I learned from TV. I learned from movies. I learned about the damsel in distress. I learned about all these different things in regards to that pertains to sexuality. I remember being a kid and then like being like 7 and then watching a movie and then like 10 p.m. hits and like this show called Real Sex would come on. And I remember being like 7 years old, like, what is this? Like, there's a machine that's like a woman sitting on it and she's being pleasured and all these like question marks. And I remember being a kid and being so fucking confused. Like, what is this? Fast forward to now, it's men. It's like we haven't had, let's say, a rites of passage into sexuality, into what intimacy really is. We've only been taught the physical nature of it based from culture and society. We haven't been taught, let's say, women have over 10 ways to orgasm in intimacy. That's non-physical. Like all these things that I had to learn as a man. So with sexuality, when it comes to men, we've been doing, and I say we as an umbrella term, not speaking for the individual. We've learned what to do based on porn, based on our buddy's story, our mate's story. Oh, do this, do that. And it has, poisoned relating in many ways.
So how would you recommend that? I just get asked this question a lot, like from my listeners, like, where do I go? How can I learn? Where do I start? Where would you recommend that, men like that go to start to learn about their sexual energy, about sexuality, what that means for them and how they can, cultivate a bit more of a meaningful, intimate life?
For me, it starts with the self. As I see the work that you do, you're deeply into the beautiful pleasures of Tantra and sacred sexuality and all these things. And that's the avenue that I have chosen. And this has been something new to me as well over the last year, with, say, semen retention and building intimacy. And also the main thing is building intimacy with myself. And I practice semen retention monthly. And this has rewritten my whole way of relating with myself about, let's say, I don't like to use this word, but like I'm being stingy with my energy and with my nature, my internal nature, and keeping it to me and pleasuring myself and feeling everything that I get to feel and give it back to myself. Where before, let's say in sex, like most men, they go into a sexual experience trying to perform rather than experience. And that's been something given to us by culture. And that's another thing too. It's like, men, we have to pay attention to our lingam just as much as we're thinking about the yoni in that moment. But bringing it back into self-pleasuring practices, I do this and I support my clients with this, my male clients, male identifying clients. It's when you eat, when you drink, when you take a walk, when you hear the birds, when you hear the roosters in this podcast in the background, everything is extremely and can be pleasure. Everything is pleasure. And that's the basis of it.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah. Living a turned on life is simply about acknowledging the delicacies that are available to us in every minute of every day.
Absolutely. And just to give something tangible to the male listeners now, just something simple. I highly recommend you look up semen retention and the practicing of edging and just keeping your prana into yourself, your seminal fluid prana and all these things, and just playing with it in that way of like, what would it look like if I didn't ejaculate for 7 days, 14 days, 21 days? There's so many resources out there, and 2 men who I follow on social media. His name is Jason, and another one is Shalom Melchizedek. And I've learned so much from these brothers in regards to this and the sacredness of the male seed. So highly recommend that this practice, men implement this practice, because it's changed my life and even how I relate in conversations and work, just by keeping my semen to myself and then having an intentional release when I need to. This has changed everything in my life. So
beautiful.
Again, practical, just semen retention. Just Google semen retention for men. Google edging for men and pleasure practices.
Yeah. We'll link to those two men that you recommended as well in the show notes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, even as a woman, I got to say, like, I really appreciate a man who has some kind of ejaculation control, because that to me is a form of self-respect. You know, if you're someone this is my personal experience, you know, it's like, it feels leaky in a way to just like constantly be ejaculating, and it's also very draining. That would be like for me having all of these clitoral orgasms multiple times a day. Like, that is really precious life force energy that I could be channeling into my work, into my conversations, into the way that I walk down the street, into my outfit for the day, into, you know, just the set of goggles that I want to put on. Like, that kind of sexual energy is really delicious and like juicy, and I don't want to be like leaking it all the time, you know?
Yes.
And also, you know, in the bedroom, and, you know, having sex with somebody, if we're just constantly having these, you know, quick to come clitoral ejaculation experiences, then there's a sense of shallowness to that in a way, you know, and in my experience, it can also, it's really brought in resentment. It's like, I know we can go deeper than this. I know there's more to life than this, yet we're constantly just like cutting ourselves short and like, you know, so yeah. So it can actually be detrimental in a way to your sex life if you know, this is for men and for women, if we're just constantly kind of cutting ourselves off in that way. So Absolutely. It's such a beautiful practice to ejaculation
and you get this,
control.
Like, glow. You get this glow.
A glow.
Like, it's like, you know, when like a woman, you say, oh, she has that pregnant glow. For men, when you're actively practicing, you get that man glow. And like, you have like this glow about you, and it's magnetizing. And for the male listeners too, like, it's, the same energy that, say, magnetizes women will also magnetize men, but not in a way, let's say, of like, relating, like intimacy, but just like, oh, this guy's interesting. I want to speak to him. There's just something about a subconscious draw to you that you get from practicing this. Like, I call it the glow.
Beautiful. I love it. So one last question is, how can women support men more who are trying to, you know, tap into their, you know, vulnerability or their emotions more? How can we help them? I just see so much emasculation out there, and, you know, this whole toxic masculinity being thrown around so carelessly. Like, that is what's toxic. So how can we start to work together and support each other?
Yeah. And I want to say too, like, I can't stand that term toxic masculinity. Like, it's
hate it.
First of all, it's like, and what goes through my consciousness is like, who the fuck do you think you are to call somebody else toxic? Like, like, what was it in the Bible? Jesus said, like, those who cast a stone, like, you get stones cast back at you, something like that along those lines. It's like, who do you think you are calling somebody toxic? Like, really? Are you above men who've been through shit? No. So
and
I just want to say
forget,
that.
Yeah, I hear you. And like, let's not forget that this whole like patriarchy, like, is not fun for men either. Like, you know, like, sure, women of course have had our experience of it, but it's not like the men of the world were just sitting there having the best time of their life. Like, this has been hard for all of us. And so moving into a new phase of relating and living in the world together, it's like, this is a team effort, and there is no one to blame here, because as well, there are so many women contributing to the chaos in the world right now. contributing to that quote unquote toxic masculine story. It's not, it's got nothing to do with men or masculinity. So yeah.
Yeah, it's safety. To me, it's safety. And again, a safety conversation, in sharing this when it comes to all of that. And it's, yeah, I'm really passionate about that because, the emasculation is a big part. We get a lot of men who are like, yeah, I don't know what to do. They come to women with their tail between their legs. Like they're showing up in life with their tail between their legs. Literally, like, what do I do? And what we do in these men's circles with Sacred Sons, CMB, Conscious Man Brotherhood, it's like what I teach men too is like, you get to take up your space. Like that's what women ultimately want, I feel innately, is when a man takes up his space with his heart, not with his ego. And that is what I feel sisters can support men with is giving them the room to take up their space, inviting them. It might take one invitation. It might take 1,000,000, but just keep the invitation coming out and not in a way of like, oh, I'm going to this personal development workshop and you're home playing video games. Like that's judgment. Like that's not cool. How do you know that he's not in his bliss right now? Because that's still a human experience. Like he's still doing his thing. If he's paying his share of the bills, if he's doing this, taking care of the kids, but he wants to play video games, so what? Like, who are you to say he's being toxic because he's not going to this convention with you? Like, fuck that.
Yeah. Amen. Let him be.
Yeah. Invite him. Invite him to take up his space. Always invite him to take up his space. And if it's a real thing for you that like he's not taking up his space, then you have to consider like what are your values and your non-negotiables in a relationship, in a partnership.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's another kind of question that I see popping around a lot is like, oh, I'm doing all this stuff and my partner's not quite on the same page as me. How can I convince him or teach him? And yeah, it is challenging because, it's that classic thing. You can't change someone and you can't tell them to do something, especially not stuff like this. All you can do is do you and show up for yourself and lead by example and just love the person for who they are and not have these expectations to, yeah.
Yeah. I've had women buy their partners one-on-one coaching package with me for a gift. And I'm like, first of all, this is the worst shit you can do to a man is to buy him a coaching package with another man because it's like, it just goes, oh, there's something wrong with you. I want you to talk to this man who seems like he has his shit together. It's like, what?
Do you sell them? Do you sell them to them?
Well, I always, my thing is I say, you can buy it. I'll give you a credit and he can use it this year or he can use it in 10 years.
Good one. That's good. I like it. Good on you. Yeah. So juicy. I feel like we could talk about this for a long time. There's like so many little avenues that we could go down. But we're coming up to time. So I want to wrap up with a couple of quick fire questions. And the first one is, how do you cultivate more pleasure in your life?
I cultivate more pleasure by physically touching my body, exploring myself, behind my ears, back, toes, just random things. I just do random things in that sensuality aspect. And also I smell flowers and I do things like that, things that I normally wouldn't do.
Beautiful. Stop and smell the roses. So simple. So true. What's one thing you've learned about self-love recently?
Ooh, that's been a big one for me as well. One thing I learned about self-love is that it has no room for shame.
Damn. I love that. That just landed on me really hard. I'm going to run a little self-inquiry on that later. Cool. Thanks for sharing. And what is one of the most impactful books you've ever read? Tough question. Only one book.
Oh, that's really, really hard. I would say, oh God. let's come back to that one after the next two questions, if can.
Oh, gosh. Well, that's actually the last one, so I could try and make up another one really quick.
Okay. I would say the book that changed my life, it would have to be simply the Four Agreements, just on the surface, just because it put into a context what I always felt in a way with my morals, and also the whole aspect of the human condition, of how beautiful the book breaks it down into how we're addicted to suffering. Once I realized I was addicted to suffering, and then my lineage was, that changed the game for me in my life.
Epic. Cool. We'll link to that in the show notes. So good. This has been so good. Thank you so much. I'm stoked to have you on the show. And how can the listeners find you, contact you, work with you? Yeah, share a little bit about, how they can do all that.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I do a lot of work through that platform. It's at Inner Light Warrior, one word, Inner Light Warrior. And my name is Brenden Durell, BrendenDurell. And my website is the same. It's www.brendendurell.com. And I'm really active on Instagram, on Facebook as well. You can hit me up there. But yeah, I'm all about community, and everybody matters to me. Always. So reach out to me. I'm here.
Beautiful. Yeah, and that'll all be linked in the show notes as well. Thank you. Thank you for this great chat.
Thank you for having me. Like, deeply, deeply content, and I love the flow of it. It was beautiful.
It was a good time. Good time. If you enjoyed this episode, hit like and subscribe, or share it with someone who you feel could benefit from hearing it too. My mission is to bring healthy sexuality to the mainstream, so be sure to leave your 5-star review on your favorite podcasting app, because that way this content can land in the ears of those who need it the most. If you're looking for more resources on how to live a turned-on life, check out my website at www.laura-allen.com, where you'll find events, coursework, free downloadable workbooks, as well as my coaching packages. And lastly, I want to thank you for taking the time to prioritize yourself in this exquisite way, because when we do, that's when we can really start to show up for the rest of the world. And until next time, thank you so much for listening, and I'll be back with another episode soon.